Hey everyone. I thought I'd do a quick video because I had Rebecca English from Daily Mail, the woman responsible for breaking the news on the 22nd of December 2023, that broke the news that William and Kate were starting their new global empire roles in 2024 by going to Rome and Italy, which has nothing to do with the Commonwealth and nothing really to do with royal duties, as per the Foreign and Commonwealth Office of UK's requests and instructions and suggestion. Instructions to go there for them to represent UK and their interests. She announced that December 22nd, 2023, and thereafter this whole health situation of Kate played out, which was odd, right? Because you wouldn't be planning a trip early Easter, not early Easter, early spring, early 2024. So I think of early 2024 as the first 3 months. So I'm guessing early spring would then also be March rather than April. You wouldn't be having then introduce a planned surgery in January that would take her out until after Easter. So I made those connections with that article done by Rebecca, that there seems to be something going on there. And there seems to be a connection with Kate and this whole health situation or narrative that's played out. Now, 4 hours ago, Rebecca decided to respond really to my post. And the reason why I think that is so is because she hasn't discussed this at all. For the last time was January. And she's talking about starting foreign tours, so not royal tours, together. And she justifies not going to the Rome trip, which is odd to bring that up again, because of Kate's health scare and treatment. So that was brought up 4 hours ago. But the post before that is what's really interesting me at the moment. Interesting me at the moment. It's to do with soft power, and soft power is the only strategy used by the WEF and globalism to bring in the new world order. And it's a way of, in a way, covert deception, using values, using empowerment of people, it's like the opposite of soft power is tyranny, is a dictatorship. And probably the opposite of that is the royal family, where they present all that's good in the world and values while they pursue an agenda. So that is the use of soft power, and that's how it's been used to then bring about the global world order, because it sorry, I've got a beep. It brings about the new world order because it invites less riots, it invites less fighting against kind of thing. It's a lot more covert and it's a lot more deceptive, like psyops and stuff like that. It kind of creates little civil wars and internal individual wars and conflicts, rather than who you should be focusing on, which enemy you should actually be looking at and questioning. So it's not just inappropriate that Rebecca is talking about foreign tours rather than royal tours for, what was actually scheduled for this year in early spring. and early 2024, and now towards 2025. So still seems to be an agreement there. She's not just bringing that up, but she's also bringing up the fact that the monarchy are invaluable assets to Trump and his campaign. Now, the USA and America should have nothing to do with the British monarchy unless there's something else going on, and they're talking about an empire that's being built, and they're talking about a movement that's about to happen under Trump's rule. I have found the everything, the PR behind Trump's election, like before he actually was voted in. So while there was meant to be this fight with Kamala Harris for the White House, it was very, very psyopy and very, very strange and very, very intentional with alt media and control media on Twitter and many other areas where we had Australians encouraging to vote for Trump in Australia, that was possible. We had like, oh my God, he's going to save us and he's going to save the world. Very, very strange. Why would an American president have anything to do with Australian government? Why would it have anything to do with us? Usually it's just something we completely separate ourselves from. So anyone who starts talking about that sort of stuff here, especially because we're quite apolitical unless you are literally like within the profession or you love politics, we really wouldn't give a shit. So and as well, like we have a politician that since last year has been very, very pro-Trump, and we've just gone, okay, well you're a plant, like you're obviously you've been funded by elitists, by billionaires in Australia, and you've got an agenda. It's as simple as that. But that's what's been happening for quite a while, and it's happening now in the UK. You saw that woman, is it Katie Hopkins, like celebrate when Trump won. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You've got the Australian chick, I forgot, Z Media, who's under that CIA operation, InfoWars or whatever else that is. She's now like, what, Australian American? It's weird how they've blurred the lines geopolitically already between Australia, UK and US, and I'm sure Canada with the Five Eyes. There seems to be now a region we're discussing that in future will be governed by one man, and that man will be Trump. It's very, very odd. This is what seems to be the narrative being played out. And you can go, oh, Laura, like, yeah, I completely disagree. Oh, no, I don't say that at all. But then you've got an article like this, and it should be waking you the fuck up, to be honest. This should be really waking you up and saying that there's writing on the wall. This shouldn't even be an article. First of all, as I have said over and over again, this sort of political interference is where you're saying the monarchy can help Trump with his governance. America's governance is really, really not just weird, but it's illegal. So normalizing this and putting this as a publication in the UK, it's almost like saying, like, if you said something against Christianity, like blasphemy, it's like, this is sacrilege. What you're saying, this is just highly, highly illegal. Well, what you would think so anyway. And to make this sort of relationship and say that the king is an invaluable asset. I think it detracts you from thinking that the UK or Chatham House are in power, which they are, rather than Trump. But it also ties them together. Yeah, it's just, it detracts you from thinking that who's in the position of power, but it also tells you about what's to come, especially with now that William's a global statesman, Harry's a global advocate, and the transitions have been completed supposedly. It seems these articles seem to be for somebody else, for something else, not us plebs. It seems to be for the higher strategy and the higher system that is that are choosing these moves. And soft power is a Chatham House construct, or it has been applied definitely throughout the Five Eyes for quite a while now. And there's books about it. Jeremy Hyman's the young global leader for WEF, who has interfered with our government in Australia through payment of the shell organisation Archwell, and he's been doing the social movements for climate change in 2014 and did all these really big movements. The tactics were soft power. So you've got to, he's done a book about it as well. So it's a really big element to this. So any wording that says soft and using that as some sort of value and justifying a political relationship with the monarchy is just red flags everywhere. So I'll quickly just do a briefing, like a little brief post I've done because of those two posts by Rebecca English of Daily Mail, to just give you a bit of a rundown and how Chatham House, soft power, and the monarchy are all intertwined, and how that will be used in future and how it's already been used. So I'll just quickly get into it. So I'm just going to read what I've said. Harvard's Professor Joseph Nye, the man who originally identified the concept of soft power, supposedly, says, "I still regard the monarchy as one of Britain's strongest soft power assets." So here we are, the guy who's meant to be the original creator or identifier of soft power, is stating that the global symbol of soft power is the monarchy, or one of, but it is what he's saying their strongest soft power asset, Britain. And there's a lot of history regarding soft power. And there's a post here done by somebody else that was interesting, and I'll just read it out. People should really look into the British socialism, Victorian era, Fabian society, how to keep the empire through soft power and social engineering. Soros, Rockefeller, London School of Economics, British agents, so Kissinger, Maxwell, Trilateral, CFR, so the Council of Foreign Relations in America, Club of Rome, WEF. It's all, those constructs are soft power and social engineering. So that's just an interesting post that I've included there. You can do your own research. Britain's Chatham House, via its WEF, created an index of soft power, and it drives every strategy played out today where it's encouraged and normalized. So you know how there's a sustainable index? We have all these indexes, right? We're meant to have like indexes for trade and GDP. Like that should be what's important, but we have one for for soft power. Now, that was in 2017, but you can see the United Kingdom is always up the top, always high, always strong. Even now, it's stronger still. They said Brexit supposedly put them a peg down, but I don't believe it whatsoever. Brexit only was a part of it. Brexit was soft power. It was completely deceptive. And it was done by Jacob Rees-Mogg. I mean, really? All these elitists under soft power pretending to be politicians. I just find that interesting. And he's like, what, Lord of Privy Council? Yeah, no conflicts of interest there. So here's an example that MJ, another account, has said the AI Safety Summit was a smart soft power play by the UK. Discusses crossing the bridge of trust in AI. And James said, actually, we don't necessarily think AI is going to destroy everything. Finds a surprisingly receptive audience.
Like it. But everyone's there because we realize we are at this threshold moment, but we're not totally there yet. We're at a moment, there's no question, because we're all using, Sam's product and other products and going, wow, we're having this incredible experience with an AI. We really have not quite had this kind of interactivity before, but we don't trust it quite yet. We have to cross that bridge.
It's just so interesting. I like the AI versus cryptocurrency kind of debates because there's really no difference. But anyway. So David Miliband in 2022 said the UK soft power abroad has considerably shrunk in post-Brexit years as a result of decisions based on illusions such as the promise of economic prosperity. I think they knew what was to come. The UK needs to reaffirm its place. Why?
View, and I say we as a Brit, we have, in my view, and I say we as a Brit.
So Chatham House is our one world government, by the way. We have branches in every country. We have AIIA, and Americans have CFR. Chatham House is also known, or was known as RIIA, the Royal Institute of International Affairs. Yeah.
Brit, we have, in my view, suffered from a time of comforting but ill-informed delusions in the last decade. Delusions about our relative power, influence and position. Delusions that have cost us dear, both strategically and tactically. Andrew Marr, in his new independent role, where he can say what he really thinks, says that we lack a national story and that we need a new national story. I don't think that national story should be mired in talk about decline, but nor can it be founded on delusion. Recent governments, plural, have responded well to the Ukraine crisis, and they would argue they also anticipated some aspects of the Ukraine crisis. Our intelligence was right, our armed forces have added value. But it's hard to think of other areas where we've earned real credit. For example, it would be wrong to characterize the Glasgow Climate Conference of Parties last November as a disaster, but it was far from the success of Paris 6 years earlier, and we do ourselves no favors by pretending otherwise. In other areas of historic strength, like humanitarian aid and diplomacy, frankly, Britain has gone AWOL. For example, I was in Ethiopia 3 weeks ago. In 2016-17, Britain played a key role convening as well as funding in staving off famine in East Africa. Today, we're absent, and people notice that. Our influence abroad, based on pragmatism...
Hold on. He's talking about their presence being an issue rather than actually staving off famine and that being the outcome. So was there an outcome or not in relation to that cause? Or are you just simply saying that there was a presence of soft power used to make people believe that they were resolving famine in that area?
Legality, procedure, stability, responsibility, commitment has, in my view, been badly tarnished by our own choices. And this is partly Brexit related. I'm thinking of the blithe assertions that we quote-unquote held all the cards, the inability to define what Brexit means, which continues to this day, the threats to break international law over the still unfinished business of the Northern Ireland Protocol, the continued threats to legislate domestically to override treaty commitments to the European Convention on Human Rights, despite these commitments being baked into other international...
Okay. So a prime example is not of the monarchy using soft power, is not being able to challenge Kate's cancer story, to be respectful of the family, that it's none of our business, that we shouldn't question anything in regards to the royal family. They are untouchable. They are godlike. They are fragile. They are delicate. They are innocent. They are victims. And they are only what's good in this world and represent what's good in this world and should never be questioned because they only represent what's good in this world. That sort of deceptive PR identity branding is soft power. It's to make you feel as though you should be ashamed or be that you're contradicting your own values, or I don't know. It's beliefs. It's a belief system created to stop you from questioning what's actually happening in front of you. So changing government policies and helping develop pandemics while pretending to be a symbol of ceremonial traditionalism is also a play of soft power. Here is an account called Abby Heffer on how it works with New World Order, Asset, Monarchy.
Queen, I thought it would be appropriate to slip in a little soft power warning. The monarchy rather than the Queen, I thought it would be appropriate to slip in a little soft power warning in amongst all of the grief and sorrow. Scholarship on authoritarian soft power argues its aim is to normalize a country's practices and culture worldwide, and no institution has been more successful at this than the British monarchy. As you'd expect, the monarchy doesn't exactly represent Britain as such, but it does represent the interests of a select subgroup of British culture and the image that they hope to portray at home and abroad of Britishness. It's also worth mentioning that this subgroup educates its children at the same schools and the same two universities. It passes down hereditary wealth as well as political power, and that it doesn't really consider itself part of the diverse, seething masses that make up the British public. The monarchy represents, as it was designed to, Britain's centre of political power, what political scientists would call the regime, which means it seeks to normalise the culture of this subgroup as integral to Britishness, and it uses textbook authoritarian arguments to do so. That's just the way it's always been. It can't argue with tradition, and it works. Despite everything done in the Queen's name to the working classes at home and the other masses abroad, in the hours since the Queen's death, strikes have been called off by major unions, and Extinction Rebellion have cancelled much-needed protests, showing a level of genuine respect that Britain's workers and activists could never hope to receive from either the monarchy or the regime it represents. Remember, the regime and its government refuse to find the funds to lift the millions of families using food banks out of food insecurity, yet you can guarantee it's going to find a way to fund this funeral and the subsequent coronation on behalf of a family with more material wealth than most British people can even visualise. And we won't be allowed to criticise out of respect for our dearly departed monarch. The death of the Queen gives our new, freshly minted Tory PM the perfect excuse to rush through further authoritarian legislation. And given that she plans to demolish the rights of workers and unions within her first 30 days in office, I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that she's going to do just that and more with the free pass the Queen's death gives her.
So that's a classic. Well, I think she's made some very valid points regarding that, but you can make up your own mind. I find it very interesting that this isn't publicly discussed, even with the Republicans or pro-Republic in UK, even with this whole dossier that was released. None of these topics are discussed because that, I believe, everything is completely and utterly controlled. I know that I saw a recent comment about, I think it was Richard Palmer saying that there was an embargo that had just finished up, and so they were allowed to discuss things or talk about things, the British media. So I'm sure there's plenty of embargoes. The media is completely controlled in Britain. So then having that dossier that just limits the actual train of thinking regarding what the royal family have done wrong seems, again, another tactic of soft power. Soft power is our only strategy being used to bring in the New World Order or One World Government. And you can see here, last year in December, there was a post by an account who talks about a book by the recent head of the Foreign Office arguing that Britain should barter away its nuclear deterrent in pursuit of soft power goals and give away our seat at the UN to the EU. The reviewer seems to relish his hand in the recent blob coups against Raab and Johnson. This is by Simon MacDonald. Beyond Britannia, Reshaping UK Foreign Policy. The View from the Ivory Towers. Let's have a look. Yeah. It essentially argues that Britain should abandon nostalgia for past glories in favour of a foreign policy centred on soft rather than hard power. Since government does not control much of the soft stuff, this is unlikely to happen. But that's not true because government uses the monarchy to represent them diplomatically, and that is why William is now a global statesman working on behalf of the British government, or, the British government and the British monarchy seems to be now interchangeable, which maybe has always been, but this is now public, and it's to bring about these sort of changes. So I don't believe that whatsoever, that the government isn't soft power, because you've got, again, people like Rees-Mogg in there. Brexit, that happened. That was definitely a soft power tactic. So control much of the soft stuff. This is unlikely to happen, even if foreigners do indeed admire the city, the law courts, the city. So the City of London, the law courts, footballers, pop stars, and the BBC. Okay. So some of MacDonald's more provocative recommendations and will attract controversy, notably his suggestions of bartering away the UK strategic nuclear deterrent, selling off the 2 new aircraft carriers and downgrading the Royal Navy into a kind of home fleet He also wishes that the UK and Russia would alternate every 2 years. See, this to me would be, well, you already have a different military, like the US military, that you have an agreement with, and that is why you wouldn't need the British fleet and military anymore, because you have potentially some sort of regional kind of military operation happening, which we already see here in Australia. So the new aircraft carriers downgraded the Royal Navy. Yep. He also wishes that the UK and Russia would alternate every 2 years as members of the UN Security Council. Okay, whatever. So again, the fact that Rebecca English has brought up the soft diplomacy and is selling UK Foreign Office's New World Order angle, despite the UK in fact controlling the US through Chatham House and Council of Foreign Relations, and thus the deal is already done, and it's by UK rather than the US needing the UK, should be the biggest wake-up call you should receive today. Her next post is the same topic, which again should wake you up that the heirs, foreign, not royal tours as global statesmen, and whatever else he symbolizes will commence in the year 2025 of the agenda. Thanks, guys.